Since the coronavirus has taken over our lives and restricted us to home sweet home, it may be as good a time as any to kick back and consider some Star Wars material. If you haven't seen the sequel movies, I should warn you there are going to be spoilers. Star Wars was a piece of media that took the world by storm. Moreover, Star Wars has had the attention of multiple generations. Upon a first look, it is perhaps understandable to think that the success of the series comes from the lightsabers, the spaceships, the aliens, and the space battles. It is called Star Wars after all, isn't it? Nobody could possibly blame Disney for thinking success was a sure thing with the benefit of money and new technologies on their side. There is something telling about the amount of controversy and criticism that has arisen over their movies, however. They are visually impressive. There just seems to be something wrong with the story, or rather, stories. Upon looking at them in both the sense of sitting down with popcorn and revising the story of their production, one has to realize they barely hold coherence between each other. That may have something to do with the problem Disney's PR department must be facing. We have all heard the criticism of the first movie in the sequel series, The Force Awakens. It's so familiar, the movie buff said. There is nothing new here. A desert orphan leaving home to face adventure in the galaxy and right some wrongs? If that isn't a basic summary of the beginning of all Star Wars trilogies, I don't know what is. The general perception was that Disney was playing it safe. Maybe that was, indeed, the original plan. Episode 7 was a conglomeration of everything we knew Star Wars to be. When I saw it, I was not particularly impressed, but I cannot say I was indignant either. This was the reaction of many. This was fine, this was okay. It was only the beginning. Problem, the executives had their ears pasted to the ground. It is not a bad thing to be aware of your audience and know what they think and who you're marketing for. But storytelling is meant to be a delicate process that hangs on a balance. Sharp turns, such as plot twists, are never going to be appreciated if they are not properly foreshadowed and made congruent with the previous work. I don't believe I've ever seen such a strong 180-degree turn as I did when I sat down in the cinema for my viewing of The Last Jedi. Luke Skywalker, the paragon of giving second chances and holding on to hope, was portrayed as a bit of a paranoid and suspicious man that acts first and considers later, then gives up in the name of cynicism. Perhaps growing up is all about starting on one end of the optimistic pessimistic scale and ending up in the other. But other than the fact that Luke was now old, the audience was never quite given an explanation for the change. Rey became a Jedi through mostly self taught means, which in the Star Wars universe was considered to be unlikely on many levels, if not impossible. Luke had great trouble calling Anakin's lightsaber to him in a life or death situation, hanging upside down on the Wampa cave, and this was after some very basic instruction from Ben. By the end of The Last Jedi, Rey is lifting a grip of heavy boulders that look like they will give Master Yoda pause. You have to understand, there are people wondering if she did it by herself or if it was the direct act of the Force's will. This is unusual. Along with the declaration that the Jedi must end and a cult against legacies, the whole movie and much of Ryan Johnson's interviews declare that Disney Star Wars is not for the old fans. The whole idea was that Star Wars was going to be reborn, revolutionized. This was not your typical Star Wars movie, nor did it want to be. Understandably, this made many fans angry. Again, it is astonishing how the game plan changed so quickly. I'll state it like this: I do not believe anyone is quite sure what happened with the rise of Skywalker. The very first, the very title returns to the idea of legacies. The ending is a mix and match between saying your family history isn't important and also saying that you should adopt another family's history rather than create your own story. It is so confusing that people are saying that Palpatine won. Many people who were actually satisfied with The Last Jedi felt shunned. Prequel characters came back like rain, a strange way to appease older fans when Perhaps a familiar feel would have been more than enough, with a desperation that led to no explanation whatsoever for their reintroduction. They had this setup for change they couldn't get rid of, so they strong armed nostalgic elements in a way that hardly fits. They took the one thing that all people seem to like, the Rey and Kylo Ren dynamic, and put in a kiss that was probably not meant to be as problematic as it is. The movie worried more about the memories and action it could cram in than about defining what it wanted to be, resulting in a horrendous scene of power escalation and poorly defined motivations. I am hardly the first person you'll hear this from, but The Rise of Skywalker seemed like it wanted to satisfy everybody, and in doing so, satisfies very few. What I'm trying to say is that Disney had very little conviction in their creation, and was rather proceeding in the way they believed appropriate based on the reaction they got of the previous movie. Look, I haven't made a chart for you guys. Now, I think there's a reason for this. To put it simply, the sequel trilogy was never created with the intention of having a fresh take on what Star Wars means, as an exploration of the universe, or even tell a story that deserved to be told. The Star Wars trilogy was not given, at least from the leading level, to a group of people who had an idea what they wanted to communicate. The Star Wars sequel trilogy, as much as it hurts me to say, because I'm actually a fan, was made simply and merely to get money from the gold mine that is the immense Star Wars fandom. It was made with no intention of presenting a cohesive and meaningful story that may stay in the hearts and minds of people everywhere, but rather to reach the very minimum of what fans expect. And in some ways, it didn't even do that. Disney was making from the external wish fulfilling approach, betting on the visual when they should have been concentrating on making a story that worked on its own. An approach to constructing a functional story first and foremost. I'm convinced that any only decent story spanning those three movies would have made Disney Star Wars a world record success. I mean, with all the passion of the fans, with all the people who grew up with Luke and Darth Vader or Anakin and Palpatine. But sadly, we did not get that. We did not get an only decent story. We got three weird, separate, joint stories that we really understand how they flow into one another. But you know what? Despair not. For this, they may have to learn doing the bare minimum. It's not only lazy, but also unprofitable. Audiences and the general public is reacting, pulling away from the movieverse. Meanwhile, The Mandalorian and The Clone Wars Season 7 is attracting fans everywhere, thirsty for material that has reliably proved to be of quality and heart. There's only one way to be legendary in the entertainment industry. Give good material that people will feel compelled to go back to. And well, guys, that was my little analysis or opinion video essay. So if you guys want to read the written version of this, the link is in the description, and that's also my website. And if you want to support me, you can do so through there. And you can also like and subscribe. But I will not always be uploading videos like this, but occasionally. So have fun and thank you for watching.